Great businesses don't start with products, they start with problems. A lot of smart people build the whole business before they find out anyone needs it. They fall in love with the idea, buy the URL, design the logo, build the website, and then go looking for someone who wants it. And that's backwards. Hi, I'm Tamara V, and this is the Creators Incubator podcast, where we create and build real solutions, inspired ones, that you, God, and your experience were uniquely equipped to build. Last week, we started with the leader because before you build something, you need to understand the person doing the building. Today, we move to the second part of the process, the solution. And this is where a lot of smart people get into trouble. They have an idea, they fall in love with it, they build it, name it, buy the URL, design the logo, build the website, and then go looking for someone who wants it. That's backwards most of the time. An idea isn't necessarily a solution. It's definitely usually not a solution. A solution solves a problem. The reason why my facial expressions are emphatic on this one is because I have done this many, many times. As I've mentioned, I've been an entrepreneur for over 20 years, and then I opened an incubator in 2013, and so I've had an opportunity to hear a lot of new ideas and new visions for what people wanted to do. And then I also taught this as a professor in a college, and ideas abound. Sitting in ideation is a lot of fun. I personally have over 200 URLs. Now, maybe because I have a little bit more of experience with it, I kind of know where I want to go. But honestly, I'm not sure. We'll see if I end up using those or not. But I enjoy the ideation process, just like I'm sure most of you all do. So today, how your experience helps you identify a problem we're solving and how to turn it into an inspired solution is our topic. Let's start with ideation. The process of generating and developing ideas. Ideas are wonderful, but ideas are assumptions until they meet the real world. You can think something is brilliant. Your spouse can think it's brilliant. Your friends can think it's brilliant. Your mastermind can think it's brilliant. None of that means somebody will use it, buy it, fund it, or adopt it. The question isn't, is this a great idea? The question is, what problem does this solve and for whom? And do they care enough about it to buy it? That's where a solution begins. This applies whether you're building a business, a nonprofit, or a ministry. Businesses generally have customers. Nonprofits may have beneficiaries, donors, and funders. Ministries may serve congregations, communities, or particular groups. The economics differ. The mission differs. But the discipline stays the same. Who are we serving, and what problem are we solving? Experience will definitely help you see the problem. Your experience, as I've mentioned, creates patterns, and patterns let you recognize problems. Maybe you have spent 20 years in healthcare and see a problem patients experience that administrators don't. Maybe you've spent decades leading teams and know exactly why a certain kind of employee keeps getting overlooked. Maybe you're a parent who navigated a problem for your own family and discovered thousands of other families face it too. Maybe you worked inside an industry long enough to know there has to be a better way to do this. And maybe you even have a great idea that you have validated amongst your peers that you know will work. But I want to just say this. There has to be a better way is the sentence a lot of businesses start with. The audience will trust that claim more if they hear that you have them in mind when you're building it. I want to tell you a story about a passion project of mine that I was involved in starting from 2017 to 2020. And it was a project in collaboration with pastors around the region, tackling the issue of homelessness. Now, we knew that we could solve housing problem. At the time we started it, we knew nothing else about, for the most part, other than some quick research about solving the issue of homelessness. But what happened along the way is we found a model that we believed worked really, really well. I'll just give them a shout. It's called Community First in Austin, Texas. We went there, we visited, we saw that they created tiny homes, as well as they had an RV section for families, and they had a vision for long-term permanent housing as well. And so we said, we know that churches around the region, especially those who spend time going to mission trips, building houses in Mexico. I live in California. We live in California. So mission trips to Mexico, building houses is a thing that happens here quite often. But so that felt like something that churches could do. And so we took that model back home and we created a model here in Sacramento. We called it Compassion Village. And basically the model was churches building homes. We made the design, they built them, and then we took them to a community church that was willing to house those. Our plan was that we would partner with other organizations in order to manage those homes and in order to bring the services and everything else that was needed. I don't want to get into a long story about this because we'll talk about it more later, but ultimately, we did not have a fully baked out plan before we started. What ended up happening was 3 years of an incredible amount of work that turned out pretty good. Community First Austin was a great model, and we followed most of what they did. But because we didn't research it fully, we didn't understand the fullness of the problem for every single person who was experiencing homelessness, which, by the way, you never need to solve all of that. I mean, cities do, but one individual doesn't necessarily need to solve all of it. Anyway, we began right there, but we should have stopped and we should have talked to the people who were experiencing the problem. We should have talked to the other vendors, the people who were providing solutions. We should have had more conversations with the city before we built it. We should have done more things before we did it. It turned out to be a fairly rewarding project, but it was a lot of hard work, and we made a lot of mistakes along the way. There are a lot of great stories, so don't get disheartened by that. It's not that you can't do it that way, but it's going to cause you a lot of stress, and it's going to probably cost you a lot more money, but you can do it. I'm trying to help you do it a little bit easier. So you ask questions like, who's experiencing this? When? How often? What are we doing about it now? What does it cost? What happens if we don't solve it? What alternatives already exist? And why aren't those alternatives enough? That's what an inspired solution starts becoming, something more than an inspiration. It starts becoming viable. There's an established startup concept called problem solution fit. At its simplest, we're establishing that a meaningful problem actually exists and that the proposed solution addresses it. As I mentioned, I believe in our first episode, Ash Maria's Running Lean and the Lean Canvas was our two popular tools that we use to figure out problem solution fit. Before we worry about scale, before we build complicated funnels, before we hire people, before we spend a fortune, we need some evidence that these two things actually connect, problem solution. And I want to add another question inside the Creators Incubator. Does the solution fit the leader? Because we can find an excellent problem and design an excellent solution that creates a terrible business for the person who has to deliver it. Remember our bakery example from episode 1. Maybe you love baking. That doesn't mean you want to manage a bakery. And owning a bakery doesn't mean you should spend your day baking. Those are different roles. So we're testing two things: problem solution fit and leader solution fit. Does it solve something real? And are you the right person to build it in this particular way? And I would actually take it even one step further, having done this for a while and seeing the types of problem solution fit that we tend to choose. We tend to jump on the ones that provide income, when there's nothing wrong with that. No shame in wanting to provide income. But sometimes we create a solution that isn't the best solution, and it isn't the solution that gives us the best integrity in the way that we're doing it. And so I would suggest that we also need to consider solution integrity fit. Do we consider the best outcome for the people who we are serving, especially if you're in a nonprofit? If people want to pay for it, people want to pay for it. But at the same time, maybe we can take it one step further and add more products that actually solve the entire problem. We'll talk about that later. Eventually, we did add services to Compassion Village, and we also added jobs and the ability to learn a trade. But again, those were 3 years of building while we were doing problem solution fit. And ultimately, that didn't play out well for us in the end when the city decided that there was no zoning for this and they didn't want it in their backyard. But anyway. All right, so the next one is one problem and one solution to start. So when you're designing problem solution fit, the problem that you come up with, you're coming up with one part solution. The first part, the one that people most want. You can always add products along the way after you get the first one down and after you make sure that it's viable. So what happens with the solution is you begin to test it with your audience. Sometimes, frankly, your audience doesn't even know what solution they need. Let's take weight loss, for example. I'm throwing that off the cuff. I've had to struggle with that sometimes in my life. There are multiple solutions, but you know what? Many of those solutions never worked for me. Now, I have found some solutions that did, but had the person who developed it up front not tried to develop it for everyone, and maybe they had been a little more narrow in their audience so that I knew it wasn't for me and I could find the one that did work, it might have better served me and it probably would have better served them in the long run. This is where experienced leaders can sometimes make it hard for themselves because we know too much. You see 17 problems, and because you can see 17 problems, you build a solution with 23 components. I'm guilty of this. Now nobody knows what you do. Guilty of that too. In the past. But maybe if you ask someone in a situation what their solution is, and it takes 3 to 5 minutes or longer to tell you what they do, that should be a little hint that they don't actually have it narrowed down enough yet to know exactly what they do and exactly what their problem solution fit is. So inside the incubator, we practice discipline: one primary problem, one primary solution. And ideally the solution has no more than 3 parts. That doesn't mean your business can never do anything else. It means people need to understand why you exist first. Clarity creates traction. Complexity creates friction. Later, you can add products, programs, services, events, community content, technology, AI, whatever belongs in the ecosystem. But first, what problem do you solve? What solution? And who is it for? Now we can talk about differentiation. Your solution needs what's called a unique value proposition, UVP. Why this? Why you? Why now? Why is this different or better for the person you're serving? And different does not mean nobody in human history has ever done anything remotely similar. Look at Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts that we talked about in episode 1 and I think in two a little bit. Apple and Dell, Simon Sinek and John Maxwell. They occupy overlapping categories without delivering identical solutions. The differentiation comes from the experience, the method, the audience, the delivery, the positioning, the business model, and yes, the leader. Which brings us right back to your creator's advantage. Now let's take it to the incubator. Let's pressure test your idea. Complete these sentences. And I would encourage you to, if you have an idea, to take it out, put it on paper, and start working through this. The problem I see is, and get right down to the root of the problem. The people who experience this problem are, the way they're solving it today is, the reason the existing solutions are not enough is, and by the way, we have lots of restaurants and places to eat. So the solution of feeding someone is layer one of the solution. As I mentioned, layer two could be the experience. Layer three could be the type of food, the diet. Layer four could be the area that it's in. You can keep going as far as you can go to get the solution as narrow as you can initially as far as what you're doing. The three or fewer essential parts of the solution are, think about what your experience gives by way of advantage in solving this. The reason someone would choose the solution instead of the alternative is what? Now, don't worry if you can't answer all of these right away. That's what incubation is for. We're extracting the assumptions so we can actually see them. Now let's protect it. This is where we stop asking only, can we build it? And start asking, should we build it in this way? Are we solving the actual problem or the problem we assume people have? Have we listened to the people affected? Are we creating unintended consequences? Does this solution genuinely serve the audience? Are we making promises it can actually deliver? Is there anything about the model that compromises our values? And are we protecting the people we're serving, the creator building it, and the integrity of the solution itself? Because I don't just want you to create something that sells. My hope for you is that you will create something worth scaling. So here we are. We have the leader, number one. Number two, the solution. Next, we need the blueprint. And this is where we make another departure from a lot of traditional business advice, because there isn't one blueprint for everyone. Some of you should build through video, some through writing, some through relationships, some through events. Some should stay small, some should scale, some should build a team, and others should never build a large team. The question isn't what is everybody else doing? The question is, what is the right blueprint for this leader and this solution? And that's what we get to incubate next. I'm Tamara V, the Creators Incubator podcast, and I look forward to our next podcast. Thank you.